The world's best physios don't just treat, they coach. Here at the Physio Coach Podcast, we invite the best physios, coaches, and health experts to inspire you on your journey to becoming a physio coach. This podcast is sponsored by Better, provider of in-person physio and personal training services in central London. We help people feel better, then live better. We believe that better never ends. This podcast exists to inspire your journey to better. I read an article about David Batty, ex-England football player. He played for Leeds, played for Blackburn, won the Premier League with both, played for Newcastle, nearly won the Premier League. He was the second most famous player to miss a penalty in the 96 shootout. He's an interesting player because my memory of him was he was a real disruptor. He really got involved, got stuck in, break up play, excellent defensively, really effective on the ball. But he was a disruptor. He'd come in and just annoy other teams. And then he disappeared from the social world. He once he retired, he kind of didn't want the limelight, so he just stood in the background, and even in his career was never the one who was looking for fame. He just played football, that was his job, and then he retired and lives on his farm somewhere in Yorkshire. And when I was speaking to you the other day and you were talking about some of your the way that you run your business, it made me think of David Batty, the football player. But then I thought, you're not really that at all. You are a disruptor, but you're not avoiding the limelight for the same reason. You've just been busy. So Matt Todman, who founded Six Physio. Most of our listeners will know of Six Physio, a big multi-practice physio company in London. You now have sold the business and you're now a consultant advisor. And these days you're more of an Adam Meakins of LinkedIn. You grabbed my attention recently with some really thought-provoking, contrarian opinions about physio, the business ownership world. And obviously at the moment I'm a young business owner looking to grow my business. So from a selfish perspective, I reached out because I wanted to know more about your experiences and how I could run my business better. So this is absolutely a selfish episode. It is for me to learn how to grow my business.
Very kind of you, Charlie.
So welcome, Matt, to the podcast. So which do you think you are more like? Are you more like David Batty or are you more like Adam Meakins?
Good grief, that is a testing question. First of all, listen, I can remember, Batty and I know bits of Adam as well. I think I probably sit between both of them,
yeah.
And a bit like neither of them, but also similarities too.
Mm-hmm. And your disruptor nature, I think, is particularly beneficial for our world because certainly, as you were describing, before my time as a physio wasn't that good. We weren't very good at doing what we were doing. So it needed disrupting, and you came in and had different methods. And nowadays, Six Physio has its way of doing things that has inspired lots of other people in the way they do things as well. This idea that physio can be broken up into its constituent parts. You have manual therapists, you have rehab specialists, Pilates specialists, and then a whole group of other specialists around those people, which we'll get to through the episode. And they all really focus on doing their job to the best of their ability and becoming specialists within that. A bit like the consultant does. The knee consultant focuses on getting really good at the knee, the ankle consultant, the shoulder consultant. Why was the physio world in need of disruption, first of all, and how did that then inspire you to do what you've now done?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And it's a funny word, disruptor, as well. I think I'm much more of a provocateur instead. I think I prefer that slightly more kind of like flowery around the edges. And I think that that's what physio needs. I think what we do as a profession, I think is so profanely powerful to lots of people. And I think when I first started, it was seen as being quite binary. You either had pain or you didn't have pain. And it was very much pain focused. And I think to try and snap out of what I was then taught, and crikey, I qualified back in the very, very, very early 90s, and it was very much seen as a very female-dominated profession. It was still very much coming from remedial massages. We just kind of followed what we were told to do, and actually, I never kind of liked being a conformist and going, these are your lanes, this is how you stick in it, and this is what you kind of do, because I could see the benefits of it, despite I hadn't really had any physio before in my life. And I think I'd always wanted to create an opportunity where I could hopefully become, not necessarily a leading figure, but someone who could help change it for everybody else behind me. I do want to have that I don't know, that knowledge base that it's okay, we can try doing it. And if I cock up and fail, it's not a problem at all. At least I've tried doing something. So I think I'm happy to try it. And actually, I think I've been very lucky. I think the thing I've tried has seemed to work. And actually, if they haven't worked, I've changed quite quickly around it. And I think it's no bad thing to be at the moment is to do that, because I think there are lots of opportunities out there.
And where do you think the next phase of this disruption is needed? Because this will be a forever process for any profession trying to improve upon themselves. What are the current issues that you see as needing change going forwards? Because now I guess you do have that opportunity where you've sold your business. You're now looking forward to different opportunities, different things to do with your life. So where do you think is next for change?
Yeah, I think it's about the value that we provide. I think we all know that we provide a great value. Lots of patients, they understand it. And this is not being selfish, and it's not being financially orientated, but I think that value must have a worth to it. And I think as physios, I think we're not great at understanding it. We talk about cost, and we talk about charge. We never appreciate actually the value of that, and value has to come at a cost. So I think we're often embarrassed and a bit shy about saying how much we charge ourselves out at. And I think especially in private practice, and for those of you who don't know me, I've only worked in London. I've only probably worked in private practice, and we'd be very much under the behold of the PMI companies. And I think they want this race to the bottom. And I think it's just a bad place for us to be at the moment. So I think we have to step outside that box. And I've always said, I think if you want to be outstanding in what you do, you have to be prepared to stand out. And therefore, to provide value and worth, we have to get away from just being led down that pathway of the insurers and saying, this is what we could do and this is how much we charge for it. Because I think most patients would be very happy to pay for it because they can feel the benefit of what we do.
Yeah, I was speaking to you in our discussion that as a business, I made a conscious choice to move away from that race to the bottom. And it was easy for me because I was a solo practitioner when I first decided this, to say, I think I can be a physio and just focus on self-funders who really care for the value of what I can provide. As a business now of multiple different providers, we focus on that. So an hour session is standard, which then makes it too expensive for those cheaper insurance providers.
Yep.
There are some insurance providers that pay our rates, and there are some that we don't work with as a result. And we're doing well. We have a growing practice. And I know that we're not the only business to do that. I'm not saying that we're necessarily special there, but I see that as this split between the cheap PMI work at the bottom, or NHS providing free care, cheap PMI, and then this more exclusive self-funding / better PMI providers who do pay the rates of physios. So that's where we've decided to go for that very reason. I have no problem with thinking of things differently, but it wasn't that long ago in my career, certainly 6-7 years ago at the time I started at Pure Sports Medicine, where I did have a tough time thinking about the cost of something for the person in front of me. I knew I needed to do it, but I was uncomfortable with selling myself. Whereas these days, I don't think of it in the same way anymore. I understand that I can provide value and I offer that value proposition. If that person says yes, great. If they say no, I'm also fine with it because I know that I can offer value regardless.
But I think it's a real hangover from the NHS. I mean, I only spent a very, very brief time in the NHS, but most of the boys and girls who worked with me at Six came through the NHS, and they this idea it's just healthcare is free. I mean, it's not free. We pay our taxes. There's a cost to it. And I think that actually people need to understand what that cost is, and therefore it still baffles me to this day, but I understand why physios don't like the sales pitch. They want to tell instead of sell. But it's integral to our survivability and to make sure that actually we become very proud and very passionate about what we do, because we've all got mortgages or we've got rent to pay, we want to do the nice things. So we need to be remunerated correctly for that.
The bit I remind people is that if they don't see you as the right person, they'll find someone else. So do you want them to take a risk going to see someone else? Or do you think you are good enough to help that person? If so, you have to sell yourself as the person to help them. Because I strongly believe that I'm good at what I do. Therefore, I want to help as many people as possible. So if that motivates you, then you are in a sales role. You're just selling yourself and your skill set.
And it's kind of funny. And I sit between, I suppose, the halfway between, I think we, physios often look at chiropractors and go, oh my God, they sell these sessions of 18 weeks, 3 times a week and stuff. And whilst I don't think that's clinically reasonable at all, I still think it's quite big kahunas to say to someone, this is what I want you to do, considering they're not giving drugs, they're not doing anything invasive at all, it's just body movement, it's a bit of exercise in there as well. They're giving someone a choice, and someone can say, no, that's not for me. So whilst I said I don't agree with the clinical stuff, come on, they're doing something so much better than what we are. And I think they're taught about it, and osteopaths are at college, and I do think physios need to have that piece. But I think the CSP's in that real dilemma. It's a trade union. It's meant for people in a trade union in the NHS, and I think we do have to get the CSP to recognise that actually independent private practitioners are valuable and should be very much part of the CSP charter. And certainly, Claire from Pure is absolutely championing that piece of trying to get us all recognised. So we're not seen as being the people who are taking money or with the ugly brothers and sisters. We are part of this healthcare system, but there is a value and a worth to that.
Right at the beginning of your healthcare journey, you didn't want to become a physio at all. So it was a means to an end to try and get to where you did want to be. So tell us the story of your physio origins.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny when we were talking. It actually comes from many years before that. When I was very, very young, my nana, bless her, she picked me up and threw me into a swimming pool in a very, very hot summer, and not a problem at all. But then about 3-4 days later, I had this really kind of painful shoulder, which I complained to my mum about having this terrible shoulder pain. So she reluctantly took me down to Southend General Hospital. And I can remember going to this place. This must have been, I assume the summer may have been something like 76, so it's the hot summer. So I was only probably 7-8 years old, and then taken into Southend General, and the smell of disinfectant and nurses walking around with these little kind of white hats on and docs in white coats and lots of signs saying staff no entry. I went in there and they x-rayed my shoulder and broke my collarbone, and all was good. But I think that was the real night of going, oh, what's behind that door? And then as I was growing up, the Sunday Times had a in the magazine, it was Maddie Jacob, who's a famous heart surgeon, this heart surgery and all the pictures of it. And I'd cut these pictures out and go, this is what I kind of want to do. And I was then sent away to a very, very nice school in Essex and decided I wasn't going to work at all. So I didn't work. I was then asked to leave politely, and then went on, but I wanted to become a doctor, but I wasn't quite intelligent enough. So my folks had a friend who was a guy who was actually looking after the Queen, and when she was wearing a crown, he was up in Harley Street, and he would then go and treat the Queen afterwards. And my mum said, "Oh, go and see this guy, kind of Leith." And I went up to go and see him, and he had this wonderful practice in Harley Street, and he was treating the great and the good and sportsmen and God knows whoever. And I came back going, "God, this is kind of quite cool. I think I can do this." I listened and said, "Mum, how do you spell physio?" She said, anyway. I was then given a place at a medical school, which was physiotherapy. So it's the old Middlesex Hospital, part of UCL. And why I was attracted there, it was a medical school with doctors, dentists, radiologists, podiatrists, nurses, dental technicians, everybody at all. But when you're in it, you're kind of in it. And I wheedled my way into it in the teams and got to know people and got to know the dean. And it was very much that actually he was saying, well, actually, Matt, if you want to come back and do medicine, come back and we'll talk about it. So by the time I got to the end of my 3 years and I was then working up at the Whittington as a physio up there, I kind of knew that I wasn't going to become a physio. So I could become rather, not flippant, but if someone said go left, I would go right because I could go right instead. And actually, I found out when I was doing, especially my orthopedics or MSK outpatient stuff, that patients were getting better by doing the exact opposite of the things I've been told to do. And I think I realised it wasn't what you were doing, but it's how you spoke to someone, it's how you got in the headspace, how you got them to trust you. So when I got through the end of my kind of year, instead of going back and saying, actually, I want to become a doctor, because all my pals were now becoming docs and looking how they are working, I thought I could see something in physio that wasn't being provided at the moment. And like I was alluding to earlier, it was very much, female dominated. It wasn't really doing very much, especially in private practice where I knew I wanted to kind of go. I knew I wanted to go into that pain of back pain and knee pain and things. So I could see opportunities as to what we could do by doing something slightly different. And then when I got the end of my year in the NHS, I think I was also strongly sold, or probably told, that the NHS probably wasn't for me because I'd been going left as they'd been going right. So I then got a job, a locum job, but certainly expanded the truth and ended up getting quite a senior job with this great guy up in North London. And it took him a few months to realise actually my CV wasn't what I said it was. I don't think I'd lied, but I don't think he'd probably read it properly. But anyway, he was very delighted because I was getting patients better. They were coming back. I was walking the walk and talking the talk as a very, very young kind of kid of being 21, 22 years old. But I was going out to Australia and I spent my 18 months going around the world having a wonderful time. But I knew I'd have to come back and do something. And it was the time when, to progress, initials were quite big. So doing your MACP or MSc was kind of like high the list. So I came back to do my MSc at UCL, so where I kind of did my undergraduate stuff at the Middlesex. And I remember I was being asked by my old dean with a kind of a board of quite important physios then. They were all very, very well-known and lovely people. And they said, so Matt, so why do you want to kind of do an MSc? And I just said, well, I was sitting on the beach thinking, what am I going to do next? Anyway, so I had this car crash of an interview, and basically I wasn't given a place at the MSc, because I was being too flippant. This is very unusual because I was going to pay some money, and normally everyone got in the MScs. So they said, you're being too flippant. Go and hang out with this guy called Mark Bender, who's doing great stuff down in Fulham, and we'll see what goes from there. So I went to go and work for Mark. He eventually became my business partner. I learned lots from him. But that was, I think, the start of me going, come on, we could do something different in this, because I'd butted up against the establishment. I've been pushed back, but I can always find a way around the wall. And I think that was such good indication as to what I think possibly could be to come next.
You sounds like the entrepreneurial edge to you was there from quite an early age, and I guess you were, whether you were aware of it or not, looking for opportunity, looking for something to flex those entrepreneurial muscles on.
Yeah, and I think so. I think it's because I could see something. I just didn't know what it was. And I think when you're certainly, back in the 90s when I was qualifying stuff, this was the rut you kind of did. This is what physiotherapy was, and it just didn't sit square on my shoulders. It didn't seem right and didn't smell right. And I think that sniff test is really important. And I think my folks were deeply supportive of me. If I wanted to take a punt and get out there, we'll go and do it and go and try it. And I could just see that, I could even see then just the value of what we were doing, the difference it was making to so many people. So why not try something different?
You were talking about the power of communication and how important it is. To me, that those soft skills are the hardest of all. And some people are really good at it naturally, but often people need to really work at that in order to become effective practitioners.
Yeah.
I know that this role here, this podcast hosting thing, has really helped me refine my communication. But I've always been interested in that. How do my words come across? What's their body language whilst I say these words? Am I able to convince this person to change their behaviour? So I've always been quite interested myself in that. Psychology is fascinating for me. So I think I was lucky to be interested in that. But a lot of people don't come into physio for the communication reasons. They come in because they want to fix people, and they think they can fix with their hands or fix with their exercise prescription, but often it's the words that you're using that shapes the effectiveness of those tools.
Well, I think you must, and you've probably heard the argument as well, or the discussion that people have, is physio a science or is it not? Where in actual fact I think that art side is probably bigger than we think it is. And that ability to speak well, and at Six we used to have a very, very non-clinical course that all the new boys and girls be put on called The Game. And it's the game of just being a physio. And it was the real art of understanding what a good experience was like and what quality is and how you can be reasonable with someone as long as you know a little bit about them. So it's really about being trusted and being liked. And we know there are plenty of good examples. The first time you meet someone, how you smile and raise your eyebrows and show your teeth and shake a hand, and the way how the room looks and sets up, and the smell and what you wear and the watch you wear and the shoes you wear. So we had a small thing that all guys could only wear certainly they couldn't wear polished shoes if they're being a manual therapist, because when people look down the hole, they see your shoes. If you've got dirty shoes, it's going to make most people kind of get put off. And that really unsubtle but very subtle way of non-verbal communication just adds greater adherence to people, and that's key to it.
Well, ultimately, we know from evidence that there's an expectation of effect that drives therapeutic benefit. So if someone is expecting to get better, then they feel better. That's placebo effect in action. And I think we underestimate the power of all of those factors you just mentioned of contributing to that placebo effect. And why should placebo be necessarily denigrated as this thing that we're trying to avoid? It's like we're maximising it. We want people to feel better before they've even walked through the door.
But it takes quite a clear head to go, that's okay to do that. I think so many people that know this is scientific stuff. And I openly admit I'm very good at managing relationships, and that's what I do with all my patients, because most people kind of get better by doing nothing at all. You cut yourself, you do nothing at all, and everyone 6 weeks later it's kind of gone. So we have to understand that's with normal tissue. But if you keep scratching tissue and stretching it, it will not get better. So sometimes, tissue gets better on its own. I'm just there to entertain them, to make their journey very, very happy and enjoyable. And 6 weeks later, hey, press, they're kind of good. And I think that's also the annoyance as well, because you then hear stories of other people saying, oh, I saw this guy, he was fantastic. My back pain went, he was incredible. But actually, it's just regression to the mean. Someone's just getting better because they're just getting better. And that's the placebo bit of understanding, saying, that's cool, that's okay. If that works for you, that's kind of fine.
Think of how much money we pay as individuals on experience anyway. why can't we bring that into our world and optimize experience, but also give them some good, solid physiotherapy at the same time?
But I think it goes back to that value proposition at the beginning. We're very happy to go out and have a meal that's going to cost, £200 or £150 or something, but we won't spend that on seeing a physio. But yet the benefit of having no back pain and sitting down paying for a meal is double, quadruple, triple it. So we have to get our measures right as to what we're comparing against, and it can't just be just these very, very brutal pounds against, well, it's free in the NHS.
So that's 80% of the problems that come in. 80% fairly straightforward to fix.
Yep.
You also mentioned about your 20%, they need a little bit more. This is drawing back to our conversation before the podcast. I like the 80-20 concept. Is it
Pareto? That's right.
Yeah. So tell me your interpretation of the 80-20. You've just kind of described the 80, but give us your overview of the 80-20.
Yeah, I think to think that every single patient has got something very individual to them, and that we have to just deal with symptoms. I think we should be dealing with causes of symptoms. So my 80% as being someone who's in private practice in London, 80% of the people, they're gradual insidious onset type pain, and they may come in with a variety of different symptoms, but you've got to find the cause of those symptoms. And I think you treat the cause and the symptoms kind of will get better by definition. Now it's the 20%, the ones where they fall off a mountain, they get hit by a bus. They need 80% of our time, because we probably do have to be better at our diagnostic skills to make sure we know actually where is the source of pain rather than why. We know the why is the falling off a mountain, being hit by a bus. So I think we have to make sure that we put our value and put our time in the place which is going to work better. So when we do see these gradual insidious onset type people, I think we should be very good at recognizing patterns of where it kind of came from, so the causes of symptoms, rather than just trying to dial down and find those symptoms getting better. Now, I think it's also hard because a lot of people, they just want people to walk out feeling better. And it's really easy to make someone feel better. If you stretch them, they feel better. If you give them £1 million, they feel better. But they don't come back and say, well, it's not quite as good. And I actually, like I was talking about the bruise analogy or the cut analogy earlier, I don't mind if someone doesn't walk out feeling any better at all because they're on a process. But I think that if we explain it well enough and rationalise it well enough, I'm very happy and confident to say to patients, listen, you just give me a month of your life, and by the time you get to a month or 5 weeks, you'll be feeling significantly better. And I know I've got to entertain them, hence the trust, the relationship, the experience piece, to fill that void in it. But the others that have the trauma, that are those 20%, that's where you've got to spend 80% of your time on making sure you can actually get tissue to heal properly.
You were mentioning about you don't mind if they don't leave feeling better. But what I think is important is that you at least push on their pain spot in one way or another. You have to be able to find something that hurts for them to really buy into it. There's something about that they almost feel like you've got them, you found it, and there's this their eyes light up and they go, that's it. And you don't always get it.
I don't know,
but I look for it. I want to be able to go. And they go, that's my pain, and there's a reflection.
I think I use this analogy where it's like a bruise that you can't see, and if you have a bruise, some of the bruises they push, they go, ow, it's really kind of obvious, but because they can't see it, therefore trying to feel it. And I think we get so in this. You think of all the Theraguns which are out there and things, and there's this way people seem to have this analogy that if you rub it, it's going to get better. So I think I can become more impressive if I don't do what other people have done, again, being quite provocative, or someone's pushing it, someone's pushed to my trigger point or my sore point. Well, I'm not going to. Yeah, but you haven't pushed my sore point. Now, if they walk, I'm going, God, it feels so much better. I've now magnified, tripled, quadrupled my result by not touching their sore spot.
And let me be clear, I actually often find it and then leave it alone because they've done that. They've often come in and they say, I've had this, I've had that, I've had manual therapy, I've had treatment, I've had massage. Well, I'm not going to repeat that because that hasn't worked, but I do at least want to go, that's where it is.
That's it. That's it.
I like that idea of the bruise that you cannot see, because that might be something you don't push, but you replicate with something else, and you go, now because it hurts when you do this, I now understand.
Yeah.
There's also something around the that 80% where the cause is something different to the actual structure that's driving pain.
Yes.
And that's why these days I do shy away from being specific on all my diagnoses, depending on the person, because if I describe their problem as you seem to have deconditioning around this structure and that structure that is driving that pain, then I'm identifying the cause and they can see that, I need to fix that. Whereas if I say you have patella tendon inflammation, then they think, well, can you take that inflammation away? Rather than me saying, well, I mean, I've used the wrong description, but if I say your quads are weak and therefore we need to build your quad strength, they're much more likely to draw towards the solution rather than expecting me to fix the pain for them.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And I met a great guy called John. He's very, very big in the advertising world. This is probably, I'm going to say, a good 20 odd years ago. And it's the only book I've ever read on business. And it's called Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath. And these are two guys in America. And it's about making ideas sticky. And that's how you remember things. They have this lovely thing called success, about how you describe every situation. It's got to be one single thing. It's got to be unexpected. It's got to be concrete. It's got to be some credence. It's got to be a story behind it as well, and an explanation. And they're so important that actually you tell this story to someone, because you've got to create a knowledge gap. You've got to have clickbait with the patients. They go, oh, I didn't know that, and I've got you. So I want a patient to care. And sometimes if they say, well, I think it's a muscle, I'll say, well, actually, I think it's a joint, just to be a devil's advocate. To go, well, why is that? And that's now making the care, and that's now making me sticky, because suddenly I'm saying something very different, very contrary to what they believe, and that will make them inquisitive, and that will make them then come back for more afterwards.
So I'm thinking there around how powerful that will be for them retaining that information, because we know how common it is. I think the stats that always stick in my mind: 50% of what you say will be forgotten immediately. 50% of what they remember will be misinterpreted and likely forgotten by the time they come back. So it's something like that anyway. So if you're creating that stickiness, my version of that often is find my key point and repeat it, and make sure I repeat that key point. And at the end of the session, check. Do you remember what it is, what that key thing is? How do you go home? The Kieran O'Sullivan test, isn't it there? How would you describe this to your loved one at home? And you get them to trigger into it.
Well, I've got a mate of mine, and his brother was coming back from Chicago a couple of years ago. He was at the airport, and a big snowstorm kind of came in, and they cancelled the flights out of there. And so he then goes to the bar. They're sitting at the bar, and there's a girl at the bar as well. And it's really kind of unusual, because the girl says to him, listen, can I kind of buy you a drink? So his mate of mine's brother said, yeah, no, look, kind of fantastic. You kind of buy me a drink. So he's bought this drink. Anyway, he then wakes up in a bath a couple of hours later in lukewarm water. And he's submerged up to here in his bath, a bit groggy, going, what the fuck's kind of going on with it? And by the side of him, there's a phone. And it says dial 911. So he goes, what's all this about? So he picks his phone up and goes, what? So he dials 911. He goes, they go, hello, Chicago police. He says, hi, look, I'm in a bath, lukewarm water. I don't know what's kind of happened. And the police operator says, okay, so listen, could you just slide your hand around your back for me? So yeah, sure. So slide he puts his hand on his back. And then she goes, well, can you feel a tube? He goes, well, yeah, I can feel a tube. He says, okay, don't worry, the paramedics are on the way. You've had your kidney stolen. There's this group of people going around Chicago at the moment stealing kind of kidneys.
Wow.
Now, that's an urban myth. But that's very sticky. You will be able to repeat that to everybody you've ever met, and you've only heard it once, because it's sudden, it's unexpected. There's a singular thing. There's concrete. It's my brother. There's a brother's friend. So that's how we kind of create these conversations. And when you know things like that, you're going, that's genius. How do I now give that to every patient to create a knowledge gap, to keep them informed? Go, oh, and that's part of that skill of communication.
It's communication. And this is, I can sense this when I've been speaking to you so far, that communication is so key for you, for the success for you. You clearly have designed a business around it. You've designed training programs around it. You practice that way. What other communication tips do you think you could give to a younger physio?
I think this is all about culture and belonging and who you want to be. And I think we sometimes expect people to fall in line with us, but the problem is, our steps could be out of pattern with it. So certainly when I was there, we had like a kind of a very, very kind of boozy culture, if I could call it that, where I want to work with people who are my friends rather than peers and colleagues. And that sometimes takes going out and being a bit silly and actually knocking down the barriers, and so people can have kind of loose lips by talking to one another, so they get to learn each other. And we've all got slightly different nuances. Some people like loud music, some people like soft music, some people like football, some people kind of don't. But you have to allow people the time and the space and the freedom and the safety to kind of explore those things. And that's how slowly teams kind of come together. And we would spend lots of time about, performing, storming, norming, performing teams as well, and actually putting things into play. And they sound very, very black and white, but I think they can be quite subtle. I've mentioned linked to kind of fun bus drivers. You need to have someone who is that absolute person who's very happy to go out to take people along, because we know if we're all singing together, our voices kind of multiply by having the same direction. And I hoped at Six I was kind of giving everyone this North Star that we're all going towards and heading. And I didn't mind how you kind of got there. My commander's intent was, we want to achieve this. Now, how we do it, I don't kind of really mind, but this is the direction we're doing. And I think by having that style of culture, that we all believe in one another, we all got each other's back, which sounds a bit kind of wanky and a bit contrite, but actually, in fact, we really had a wonderful bunch of people because we could all become ourselves and do what we wanted to. Now, there had to be rules, but I think the rules were very open and even and honest, and that people kind of got, and so why wouldn't you do it? I don't believe we have a place where you should be happy to go to work on a Sunday evening. I mean, everyone should feel Sunday evening, oh my God, it's Monday tomorrow. We should all have those blues about it, and that's normal. But it's when you do come to work, it is then, actually, these are the boys and girls I want to hang out with. These are the people who tell me funny stories about the weekend. And I suppose the only evidence I have of that is what makes me very happy is when I then hear about the guys who've worked and the girls who've worked with me, that they'll fly half around the world to go to a wedding of someone who's in Australia or something. That's lovely. That's real tangible, lovely stuff. And I think, and as I get older, I appreciate that so much. And it's like, when people have kids, they bring their kids in. Don't bring their little nippers in, but when they're 3 and 4 and they walk around into gyms, it's just great. We are truly forming a community. And I know that people don't like that idea about joining a family. I love it. I wanted people to all become very much part of it. There's no bosses, there's no leaders. There's a seamless hierarchical type way of doing it, and you can say what you want when you want. But that takes time and it takes money, because I think we have a people business. It's not a business that people work in. And that culture, it's like your sourdough starters. You've got to keep feeding. You've got to keep putting stuff into it, and you get your dividends, you get your returns, 2-3 times over. But by spending time and effort and money and allowing people to become what they want to become rather than who we think they should be.
I was reading something recently that was describing the role of an entrepreneur, founder, as someone who creates jobs. There was something about that really rings true to me, of like, that's, to some degree, that's what we are trying to do. Our success, if we have a successful business, you tend to have more and more people working for you, so you're creating more and more jobs, which then impacts on the economy and on the wider landscape of those people. So that really rings true of your description there of, it's a people business. You've really got to foster that culture in order to create these more jobs.
Just you kind of meet some people sometimes, they've just got this vibe and this buzz about them. You go, well, I don't know how the hell we're going to put them in, but we need them to do something, because they not only bring themselves, but they bring another 3 or 4 people as well with it. And that's a priceless thing. And certainly when we started to recruit as well, we tried to recruit within as well. So we'd have someone like you who'd bring someone else, who'd bring 2 more. And we had this wonderful guy who came from New Zealand, and he brought about 10, 11, 12 people to come and work with us. And they were all similar traits. They were all fantastic, and it was like, wow, this is what people should be kind of doing. So when it works really well. But sometimes I think it can fall foul. I think this sourdough starter can go sour. And I think you've got to be very quick to kind of recognize it and get rid of it, because everybody smells it, everybody sees it. And that's team members, that's patients, and you've got to be quite oomphy and ballsy and say, this is just not working, and be polite and be respectful, but just don't beat around the bush and just do what needs to be done.
That's the rotten apple. Is it the rotten apple theory, where if there's one rotten apple, it stinks out the whole place? I think I can't remember if I'm quite getting it right, but when they study it, it literally does take one person to bring down the culture. So you need to be able to recognise it from what you're saying.
And that's why I said Ben the Kiwi, he brought these people over, just rock and roll.
Yeah. Let's go back a bit here and just talk a bit about the starting point for Six. You spoke really well about how you didn't really want to be a physio and you stumbled into it, figured out there was an opportunity there. What about that phase between working for someone and then setting up Six? How did that?
Yeah, so this is way down back in the early 90s with Mark in Parsons Green, and joining him down there. And I think we were doing very different things. We were doing lots of the Jenny McConnell courses, and she's an Australian physiotherapist who started putting tape on people's knees first of all. And so we were teaching her courses up and down the country into Europe and things. And I think she's probably someone who had a huge influence on my clinical career going forwards, because she would talk about soft tissue joints, and actually it's the control around that joint that's important rather than the joint play itself. And by doing that, and Mark and I, we were probably teaching in a month probably 6 courses. So every other weekend we're out up and down in the country doing stuff and taping and showing them a skill and having a very, very nice, reasonable explanation, which is very clinically biased around how we could change things and change tissue and make people kind of feel better. And therefore that would get people coming to see us, and physios and people would come down to Parsons Green to come and see us, because we were doing different things. We were already deviating away from what the normal physiotherapy was. We didn't use any electrotherapy at all. It was very much, decent hands-on manual therapy, some taping and some rehab as well. The problem being, people would then come to us and then they'll go to their surgeon and say, well, actual fact, listen, I've seen a physio. They said my knee doesn't need an operation. Surgeons really didn't like this at all, because suddenly we were now eating on the same table as them. And we had quite a few tricky conversations where surgeons would say, well, you can't do this. They're my patients. They will have an operation. And we're saying, well, actually, no, we're not going to do that. I think if you look after them well, they don't need to. So we're kind of excommunicated for a while, but actually I think the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. When patients get better and tell other people, they'll say, well, listen, fine, I think I'll try some physio first of all, come to the right place, get better, tell other people. And so it kind of rolled forwards from that. And so with Jenny's stuff, we then got into tennis players as well, and we were treating Pat Cash, we won Wimbledon, and I suppose we were right time, right place. We saw lots of the football teams as well, and some of the rugby teams as well, because we were just doing different things. We were happy to stand out and be outstanding in what we're doing. And it then gave us the ability to then start to expand. So instead of people coming all the way from the city, all the way down the district line, Parsons Green, so a half an hour appointment would take them, I don't know, kind of 2 hours or something. We then went into the city, and we used all our own money. We didn't borrow anything at all. It's just our cash being put into a place in the city. We then made quite a big cock-up. We then went down to a tennis centre, an LTA junior tennis centre down in Sutton in Surrey, and that didn't work at all. It was just the wrong demographic. It was the wrong patient. And we probably didn't have the right business mind to kind of make that work either. Then we went to Harley Street, because it's an obvious place to go. And we had this fantastic place at number 2 Harley Street, right at the end, with beautiful views, up and down Harley Street. And it was really just growth from that, because we believed what we were doing was better than anybody else. We're also then, at this stage, we then started to split out between the manual therapy and the rehab therapy. And I suppose that made us different, that idol that we wanted to stand out, to be very different to what we were kind of doing. Now, a lot of people didn't like it, a lot of the physios, because they thought they wanted to do a bit of both. But I think that's the jack of all trades and master of none. You go and see a knee surgeon to have your knee done. You don't go and see a heart specialist. And we wanted to make sure that we could specialise in something. And I say I'm a really good manual therapist. I can do lots of things to make people feel better. But I know there are better rehabbers out there than me. And I think the patient needs to see the right person doing the right thing, not the person doing the thing. So I'm good at rehab, but there are people just better. So I thought it was right, I should get my patients to see me for really good hands-on manual therapy, give them the ability to move better, not more, and then into rehab to kind of coach them to make them move better. And the way that, again, that gives a stickiness to patients, we would talk behind their backs, which patients kind of love. So they'd come and see me, then they'd go and see Sarah in the gym or something. And of course, Sarah says, oh yeah, I've spoken to Matt about you. Patients love that stuff. It's 2 heads better than 1. And also, I think I underestimated initially, but now I fully get it. It's a wonderful way to learn, because when you're trying to be clinical reasonable with your physios and your teaching and training and mentoring, you've only got really notes to look at, which are very, very black and white, even than all the new AI stuff. But I've had plenty of occasions where the physios, the rehab will say, actually, this patient's a real pain in the arse. But I'll say, well, no, I don't think they are. I think they're kind of cool, or vice versa. And it's just about personalities. It's a personality clash. That's why you've got to, turn your knobs up and turn your knobs down, and it's showtime seeing patients. So it gave us a much better way of this very, very non-threatening way of coaching people into becoming better, because 2 people were looking at them. And so it kind of works. And therefore we had the manuals, we had the rehabs. But also it's a very, very good way that we could also control people where they are kind of working. It was great for occupancy. It was great for understanding, how we could improve our metrics. Because if we have 4 rooms and a gym as well, and I've got 8 physios there, I have 4 physios in rooms and 4 physios in the gym, rather than having, well, if we're all doing a bit of everything, suddenly all the gyms stacked with 8 of us and 8 patients, or the rooms are chock-a-block. But the manual rehab split isn't just the black and white thing. There's a big grey splodge in the middle. So I would, very much start, getting someone moving better, and then hand them over. And the manuals would always spend some time in the gym, and the rehab would spend a bit of time in the rooms. But the vast majority was in your spaces. So this idea about measuring productivity and making sure that we are being really inclusive with our days, and we're actually being maximally productive in those days, was also based out of the manual kind of rehab split. The business owner in me loves it. Loves the concept of that, and it makes total sense. The clinician in me is really skeptical, because it's not the way my brain works. My brain is really general. My brain is such a generalist. I don't even really these days like learning about physio, because
I want to learn about psychology, I want to learn about exercise, I want to learn about other things, and then I draw back onto my physio. I think, how can I apply that? Oh yeah, I can do that way. But interestingly, as much as it doesn't work for me as a clinician, these days I am realizing more and more that I am much more comfortable to say, manual therapy isn't really my thing. I'm good at it, but I'm not excellent at it. You should go and see my colleague because he's an expert here. And I'm doing it more and more because I'm being confident in what I'm good at and telling the patient you're going to get better value for this particular type of service with my colleague. So although it gets my back up initially, and certainly did when I was thinking about where do I work, that did put me off, certainly. And I know I'm not the only one to think that, and you're probably thinking, good.
But I think you come to accept it. And I say, I love these differences. I love it that people don't love it, because that's that disruptor going, fuck you, it doesn't work thing, and that's perfect. But even for me, as a physio of now of my age, I'm a one-trick pony. I treat everybody's, and people who kind of know me, I just treat their thoracic spines, and that's not because I'm giving extra movement. I'm just improving the quality of what they can do. And I think as long as you have quality of what you do, I think you do lots of things. And I know we spoke about it, but it's so hard as physios because we can measure range of motion, we can measure strength. The thing that we can't measure is control or stability. Maybe some force-tech stuff, but that's where we live, in that nebulous kind of grotty grey area. And when we start looking at pain and psychology and feelings and emotions, we've got lots to play with in that middle ground. And that's where the real money kind of comes out of it.
But what I think is we can see it. You can see, and this is the skill that comes through with time, is that you can see when something isn't controlled. You can see when their movement quality is poor. You can also coach them and demonstrate that with a mirror, with observation, with picking these things out, so they can then see it. So when it improves, you might not be able to measure it with numbers very easily or at all, but you can see it. And I think that's important, is that the person can go, you know what, I do know what you're talking about here. I understand, and that makes sense. So you, again, use your communication skills to connect what you're observing with their story, so they can go away with this sticky point of, I didn't know that, but that now makes sense to me, and I'll work at it.
And it's really, and probably one of the biggest embellishments is iPhones, is AirDrop. It's weird. I don't use any of these these lovely exercise programs that you can do in push and clicks. I think it takes time to do, so I video pretty much every single patient. If I'm going to give them rehab, I'll stick it on the phone and do it. But what I'll do, I'll always put it on my phone and then AirDrop it across to them. And I would say that even guys of your age and my age and younger and things like that, they are just wowed when you bang the phones together and they go across. They go, oh my God, that is incredible. And that is the most incredible ending. They walk out going, I can't believe it, because you're chatting and doing whatever in it. So there's lots of all these little touch points that we don't realise as a patient are so important. And actually, it is your voice. It's great. Look at that. And you're describing everything on the video. It's massively important. And that, again, gets you to step above everybody else. And it's the differences that make... It's that Dave Brailsford type thing. It's the 1 or 2% here and there. When you put it together, makes quite a big change. And that's what we should be focusing on.
As you started to grow your business, so you've now got a few sites across London, I imagine your team is now getting a bit bigger. How did that then affect the culture of what you were doing, the day-to-day runnings of what you were doing? I imagine there were some different challenges you had to deal with and problems you had to solve.
Yeah, and I think, and as you grow, it's really kind of hard. When you start off and you're doing okay, you have like a lovely kind of growth line like this, and there's this thing called the Texas clutch, or should I say the Texas clutch? And it's, if you ever cook a brisket, you put it in a barbecue low and slow, what happens? The temperature goes up and up and up. It's all very, very nice. Your clinic kind of grows and grows and grows. And then it gets to about this 65 degrees where the temperature goes sideways and it doesn't carry on cooking. It's because what's happening is that it's kind of sweating. The moisture from the meat's coming out and cooling it down, and therefore it doesn't kind of cook. And you can stay in this line where you're not doing very much for a while, and eventually it kind of goes up to 95 when you take it off. Or actually, the clutch is actually you wrap it up in tin foil and brown paper. So you have to put something onto it and it breaks through the clutch and cooks much quicker. So as you're growing, you then have to go out and either find investment or you've got to go to the bank and go and talk. But this is where the risk comes into it. So we had a stage where we probably had, 4 or 5 clinics, and we were just kind of did lots, then going sideways. So we then went to Santander, and we then got a loan from Santander. But of course, it had to be personal to me. And going home to Jane, my wife, and saying, I've got a personal guarantee for hundreds of thousands of pounds on the business. But that was to get me through this stall, to allow me to go on and allow us to go on to do different things. And also bring along my CEO, Rupert, who's someone who's got a bit of an idea and nous about this and what we should be doing. So you'll get to a stage where it's really good, and then you want to grow, and you'll be frustrated because you're working really hard, you're going sideways, you're not going up. And that's where you then have to go, well, do I go in big? And actually that's the risk, that's the stress, that's the pressure, that's the hassle. But it will give you the reward at the end of it. And I think, again, I was right time, right place. Physio was doing wonderful things. People were really kind of getting onto it. We were doing good stuff. We were teaching. We were in the papers a lot. We were in the news a lot. And it just seemed the right thing to do. But it was a risky thing to do because I put everything on the line to make this stuff kind of work and kind of happen. But it's belief. It's then make sure you take everyone with you as well. So when we talk about finding people who are brilliant and giving them tasks, people love the idea that they're going to be part of a story and part of a series, and they are part of the DNA matrix of something. So we would absolutely take on the key people and say, we want you to become part of this, and how do you help shape and change the future of what Six should become? And with a few of those and some cash in the bank and this go ahead and can do attitude. And I think for me, I've always stayed a clinician. I've done very little of the business management stuff. I haven't done that. That's not my good bit. I want to surround myself with brilliant people. So I made sure I had a brilliant team, brilliant individuals who could help do those things. But I would stay on the shop floor with all the guys, make sure that they could see what I was doing, what they were doing, and hopefully make that transitional pace much easier rather than Matt's just swanning off and not doing anything at all. And we were still working clinically, good 40, 50, sometimes 60-hour kind of weeks, because that just needed to be done. And I had to be, I hate the word present, but I had to be seen to be doing stuff and out and shaking hands and kissing babies with consultants, because that's part of growing a business. So it is meant to be hard. And I think if it's not keeping you awake, if the kids aren't keeping you awake, it's your business that's keeping you awake. And it just fills your mind. You should have no escape to it. But also it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be bad enough where you want to go splat and kind of, dissolve into a pile of poop, because we're not dealing with life and death situations. We don't see, kind of horrifically graphic things. It's just hard graft. And I think if you're good at what you do, I think if you're honest, and I think if you've got the oomph to keep going forwards, I think you'll make it. But it's got to come from you and nobody else.
This feels very personal, this part. It feels like you are literally talking to me about this, which to some degree I'm sure you are, and I'm feeling it that way. I feel like my business is sweating. It's part of that Texas clutch at the moment. And I know that we're doing great stuff and I'm enjoying every bit of it. And there's lots of plans that we have in place.
But it's so exciting.
And it's so exciting.
And that's why I love things like this time. Look at you go, fuck, I want you to do it.
Yeah.
This is going to be just the best and the hardest 10 years of your life. But I've never really looked back and reflected what I've done, but I'm just starting to thinking, I've had an awesome time and it is great. And I'm so buzzy for the things next and helping guys like you and helping other people, because it's awesome. The stuff that we can do and how we make it work, but it's got to come from belief.
There's also another part that I didn't realise until relatively recently, that I'm really comfortable thinking about what I'm doing most of the time in my life. It's not all the time. It doesn't obsess me necessarily, but I'm at home. Sometimes my mind drifts away and I'm thinking about, what am I doing in the business? How do I change that? What's that person said to me? How do I make sure that they're happy there? And I'm thinking about it and I enjoy it. I enjoy that problem solving in my head.
Yeah.
Like, whereas I know some people, they're like, I need to switch off now, and I need to but I enjoy that problem solving. Whereas with my patients, when that person leaves the room and I've typed up their notes and I've sent them what I need to send them, I forget all about them until they come back in again, unless there's something, particularly significant I need to be aware of. So I don't know how I've got that skill. I don't know why I've managed to not worry about my patients until they come back, because it stops me from burnout. I don't know why I necessarily really enjoy all that other stuff and it's on my mind all the time. I'm thinking about it and I'm loving it. But I think it allows me to do what I'm doing right now, and it allows me to push hard and not burn out. It allows me to enjoy what I do and be in the right frame of mind for it, and care about the right things in order to make it successful, but also have some skills that work for it. I feel very fortunate that that's my makeup. But I know there's people out there that have done things quicker than me and sooner than me. But I definitely wasn't ready to be a business owner until I was ready to be a business owner. There's some truth to that in my mid-30s, it was like, oh, well, if I can't develop in the way I want to develop here, then I guess I'll have to open my own thing.
Yeah.
So it happened quite suddenly, whereas yours, I can sense there was a much earlier progression towards that.
Yeah, and I think again, I think I was probably right time, right place. But I do think there's a switch inside of most people, not everybody, but it needs to be flicked. And when it's flicked, it suddenly then becomes, I now get this.
Yeah.
But I think we need stress. And I think the idea, I've got to be totally, you need stress, the stuff that gets us going and actually makes us worry and gets adrenaline kind of pumping. And I think that's the key bit. It needs to hurt.
I was feeling stressed about the fact that I always just wanted to be the best physio I could be. So to me, I was just looking for the role or the course or the thing or the video or the book that was going to help me be the best physio I could be. And then I was at a company which I considered to be one of or the best physio company in London, and I was in a role where I couldn't really see myself easily progressing. I was in a senior role, but there were some much more senior people above me that probably weren't going to go anywhere and are still there. I just thought, hang on a minute, how am I going to progress where I am now? I'm sure that people would argue and say, oh, you could have. But then that stress was then driving me to think of alternative options.
Yeah.
And it was that stress that made me ask difficult questions of my current career, difficult questions to people I trusted, who then, and I had ideas. I wasn't short of ideas, and they kept saying, why aren't you doing it then?
Yeah.
Like, you've got all these things, you keep waiting for the right time. Is it not now? And it was this... I think
it's a build-up and a build-up.
It is now. It was this build-up of pressure. It was the Texas clutch thing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was there, and all of a sudden I'm sweating, and then boom, growth.
And off you go.
I had about a year, but it was definitely several months, but probably about a year where my energy in my brain was constant. It didn't matter how many hours I was awake, I had energy.
Yeah.
I had things to do, problems to solve. I get 4 hours sleep, wake up and go, right, I know what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And it did, at the end of that year, I did burn out to some degree, and then I found some balance when I then went full-time in my business. But I remember looking back on that energy, that liberating feeling of now I know where I need to be.
And I think it's about channeling it. I think you've got to know how to channel it. And certainly, at Six, with the clinics that we would build up and have a clinic director with the sole purpose of showing them how to run businesses, to read P&Ls, to hire, to fire, to put systems in place. So one day they could set up their own business, so they can actually understand what you've got to go through while having their hands held. Because I want more good physios out there. Because the more good physios there are, we then knock out all the bad physios. We then have proper value, and proper worth as well. So there is this idyll that I just want good physios, more good physios in more great places.
How do you create that from here? You've sold your business. What does that look like for you?
Well, it's lovely. It's funny when you're working really hard, and at the moment you'll be doing the same thing where you feel it's here. And what I've kind of learned is that it's like a brick wall in front of you. And actually, because I've stopped, what's happened? The world carries on, and this brick wall then heads away into the distance. But now I can actually look around it, and I can see the blue sky, and I can see actually, maybe the rendering's not done as well, or maybe there's some pointing over here. I can see the opportunities, and I don't want to just stop and let everything disappear. But I can certainly see there are areas that we can do so much better in. And again, the biggest thing in London is this whole PMI piece and about not being beholden to any of the insurance companies. I think the specialist services, is really kind of important, and that goes away from just the bog standard, the Pilates, the physio, the strength conditioning. I think there's the longevity piece. I think there is some cardio stuff. I think there's some oncology stuff as well, because we mean so much to so many people. And I'm just trying to figure out what's best. I think I've probably learnt, weirdly enough, when I finished at Six, I thought I've learnt nothing at all. But over these coming months, I think I've probably learnt some things. And what's really nice is I wake up and go, I kind of do that, and I can't understand it, and I won't chase that, but I will pursue this. So every day, which sounds really wanky, I think I learn a little bit more about myself and what I really want to do and how I can help. Because so many people like you are going through things, and I always want people to ask me, say, well, what about this? And not I can give them answers, but I can give them my experience, and I can tell them my stories. And those stories hopefully will resonate or make people think differently. And maybe just that one little tiny percent of something will make that little spark to go, okay, I've got to do this. I've got to change that course of where they're going. But physio has given me something rather wonderful. And I think there's still so much more that physio can give to more people, but it is about owning this space, and it is about making sure that we are strong and unified, that we are making a real difference to people, and that comes at a cost.
And as a ex-physio business owner, and as a current physio business owner for me, we both obviously understand the value of physio. We also understand the value of MDTs and working with other disciplines, and both of our businesses have the word physio within them, but also appreciate the broader value that they bring. How do you find the balance between championing physio, understanding that physio has such a great role to play in healthcare, but also then blending with other healthcare professions?
Yeah.
How did you find that balance?
Yeah.
Because I almost went too broad to begin with. Then I realised, no, we're a physio business, but we do have PTs within our business, and I have future plans to involve other providers. But how do you think that fits within this wider context of MDT versus physio specialists?
I think there's a great question, and I think there's probably no long answer to it. But I think one of the good and the bad things, physio is now a noun and a verb, which kind of winds me up. So people say, or a doctor says, they've done some physio, they failed. And you go, well, what have they done? You tell me. So it can't be as simple as that, or physio doesn't work. Well, it kind of does. So I'm a real champion of physio. I think unequivocally we are the best profession out there because of our history, who we are, what we do. But also I appreciate there are lots of other very, very good guys out there doing very, very good things who are not physios. So then maybe I go full circle and go, maybe physio is the wrong term. Perhaps we should all become, I don't know, musculoskeletal somethings. So we actually drop that term physio. But the problem is if you drop it, some other creaky old snod's going to come along and nick it and say, well, I'm a physio instead. So that's why it's a great question. I don't know, because as a patient, I think what's really tricky sometimes, they ring up and say, hello, I've got a bad back. You've got a chiropractor, a physio and an osteopath. Who should I go and see? Oh, that's like, wowzers, we've all got these professions, but actually it's down to the people instead. So maybe we do have to drop those terms. So what I'm trying to say is I don't know. And I think it's an ever-evolving, I know we've got to have them in. Things like exercise physiologists, they fascinate me. I don't know what they do, but I think they should be playing something. But how, I'm not sure yet. I know there's some great osteopaths and chiropractors. Personal trainers are amazing. Pilates people are fantastic. Some of the sports massage people are rock and roll. But I don't know why I stick with physio. I know what good physio is. I know what bad physio is. So that's why I stick to that. But I don't know what a bad osteopath is. I don't know what a bad chiropractor is, or necessarily what a very, very good one is. So I don't know.
But let me cover a couple of points here. And as I was asking the question, I started to think of the answer myself, but I wasn't sure of it. And I'm glad that you said that, because I also don't know, because it is a dichotomy, isn't it? But one of the interesting points, which is the shortest of the points, was a recent guest, Dr. George Bounds. He now describes himself as a musculoskeletal doctor. He doesn't like the sports medicine consultant because it alienates him from what he really is. He's treating musculoskeletal problems, which I straight away aligned to. I thought that's good. I like that, because I often describe them as something similar to that when I say, go and see a sports medicine consultant. But by the way, you don't need a sports injury. It's fine. They do other things. So that simplifies that. Then I think of what we're trying to do in our business and how we've realised that we are a physio business. We're not a health business. We are a physio business that has other ways of helping people's health. Our tagline, feel better, live better. The first part is people come to us with an injury, and people inherently know, because of society, that physios help with musculoskeletal injuries. So that's the entrance point. It's almost a marketing concept. It's like people just need to know where to go when they have musculoskeletal pain. Well, that works because we can help them feel better with different ways of working. And often that starts with the physio. But if we're trying to solve their cause, figure out their cause, then we need to help them live better. And it's those lifestyle changes that allow them to not just feel better, but also live better. And hopefully then they have less problems in the future, live their life better, and tell all their friends about us. But it's that feel better, live better. Both of those can require different professions to get it really right. It could be a soft tissue therapist, it could be a Pilates specialist, it could be an exercise physiologist, as you were describing earlier.
A nutritionist as well.
A nutritionist. And that's what I suddenly realised, is we can be a physio business that as a label so that people recognize what we do to begin with, but it's what people leave with that really matters. It's that they leave with this broader health journey that is really about them living better. Once we get that, that's where longevity comes in. That's where massive health change happens, not just the little bit at the start because of their injury. And then I go, oh, no wonder, that's because that's what I really care about. That's what I'm really interested in. No wonder my business is following this path towards it. And it feels great because you then have an impact on wider health, and it's not just doing your little physio bit that sends them away feeling better in the moment.
But that's what I think is that you want to meet someone like you. You always want to meet someone like you in a different guise. You say, actually, well, I'm a nutritionist, and you go, wow, this is amazing. This is where we kind of go together. And I think it's going to happen. But I don't know who's going to do it. But I think it's the right thing. And then I think it makes it much easier for physios, because I think there's going to have to be a cost associated with that as well. And that's going to be something quite meaningful, but it's going to give this wonderful longevity stuff. And I think it's going to be for people who are probably certainly north of 35, I think. I think that's where people really need to be kind of investing in that. I haven't worked out how, because I think the quantums are big. And what I don't want to happen is actually you just get some big, huge, vanilla company coming along going splodge and just dumbing it all down into little kind of like bite-sized pieces. I think it's much richer than that, because everyone's slightly different. I think they need slightly different things, but it has to be done by experts and people field, or they're experts in their field or whatever they kind of do. So I had the same, views. I just don't know how you get there.
Maybe we need to have another conversation in the future when we've had some more views and figure out. But this is quite heartwarming for me, knowing that you're at the other end of it and still feeling so passionate about that. Because I look forward and think, God, I hope I don't lose what I've got. So, glad to hear.
Well, also, I think I'm just not big at it, but I'm bizarrely good at what I kind of do, which is a really odd thing to say. But I think I can see I'm good at dealing with really complex things and really kind of simple things. And when you have that ability, because I've seen it and understood it, I want to show more people about it, because again, it's trying to knock out the bad physios and say we should only be doing good physio and that is it. So a lot of people said, well, you just got to stop and curl up, and no chance. Why would I? I'm having too much fun at the moment, and that's why I like treating patients.
There's this interesting paradox between simplicity, complexity, and good physio, bad physio. And often I associate, and I know you do too, we spoke about it the other day, of bad physio often overcomplicates, good physio simplifies. I give out, they're often slightly dosed differently, and the order might be different, and there's an element of individualization. But if you look at the programs that I often give out to people, there is so much similarity between them that it looks almost basic and simple on the surface. But under the hood, there's a lot of kind of complex ideas going on in my mind about, well, how do I make sure the person does what I want them to do? How do I help them build confidence with this so that they don't run away and never come back? How do I also ensure that I bring in someone who can help them feel better a little faster than me because they're better at it? So there's this complexity happening under the hood, but the actual product I give is super simple.
Yep. And that's what's lovely, isn't it? It's like having sometimes a simple home cooked meal is so much better than Michelin 3-star kind of restaurant. That's like fussy and fuddy and things, but this is just good. It's heartwarming. It's decent stuff. So I think it's also very, very hard when you're trying to establish yourself is to do the simple things, because you watch, well, I've done this, I've been on this course, and especially with all the tech which is out there as well, you can buy so much stuff, but actually does it give you anything kind of tangible? Now, that's not necessarily it's kind of wrong. I think a lot of patients, they quite like that. They come back with sheets of paper and PDFs saying, oh, look, my foot does this and my nose does that when I kind of run. They get it, but is there value in that? And I don't know. So how do you get them better, or feeling better and getting better? I think you still end up doing kind of simple things. So I think physios who are learning and developing, I think it is a circuit they've got to go on.
Yes.
And I kind of having the same thing when Brian Mulligan used to kind of teach all the nags and snags. It was almost like that cheat code that it was just making people feel better, but they didn't know how they were doing it. And lots of people wanted to learn to do nags and snags without understanding any of the other stuff around it. And therefore, I think they kind of missed the point, because they didn't understand why this was effective and why it was actually kind of working. So I think we have to be careful and have to temper it, that we don't just give them the answer. They've got to work out the equation to come back and say, it's fine, it is one of these.
Yeah, there's doing the reps. I know that younger physios hate hearing this. You've got to do the reps. You've got to get the hours in. I know that, and I would have hated it when would have been told it when I was younger. Just give me the cheat code. Tell me what it is.
Yep.
But in the end, you do come that full circle. And one of the things that really benefited me as a young physio was having exposure to lots of different types of physio in different worlds, a safe space to try lots of different things. And I would have been trying unnecessarily complicated stuff in order to then realise that I probably don't need to do it that way. And my work in sport, for example, I learned how to tape in a really safe space. I'd learn how to rip the tape. Well, I know one of your things is you've got to be able to rip tape. It's like, you can't look silly in front of a patient or be able to rip tape. And I had a safe space to do it because I was in a team environment where the club paid me, the player didn't. They didn't mind if I couldn't rip tape. They'd give me some patience. They'll soon tell me if it didn't work though. So I had this quick feedback loop of, that doesn't work. I need to figure out how to make sure they can still run on the pitch but still brace that part of the knee that I want to brace. So you kind of learn fast in that situation.
But I wonder with when you get more mature physios coming through who obviously go to college at later years and things like that, they do actually come in with some experience and no greater any other experience, but it's just like life and talking to people and understanding, you slam your fingers in the door, it kind of hurts. It's going to take at least a week to kind of get better. So I think maybe experience is just age. It's just normal, everyday kind of stuff. And that's not being cruel or disrespectful to younger kind of kids. That's my kids' age as well. But actually, you've got to go through some shitty stuff to kind of come out and say, that's all right, it's kind of normal. Maybe that's where they need the protection.
One of the things that you clearly did actually is create that environment at Six, because you had lots of people coming out of the NHS. And how do you do that? How do you create that safe space around a group of learning physios who are going to fail? How do you make sure that that's okay? How do you do that?
Yeah, and again, I think that's very culturally led. That's okay, and that's because I'm there. And so all the physios that came through Six would all get some coaching. I mean, we called it the very original Matt's modules, and Matt's modules would turn up. They'd all go through 3 or 4 afternoons with me. And I think was important is that it's okay for me to take the mick out of them when they're not tearing tape properly, but it's something which is done with love and true respect to kind of make you become better. And actually, don't panic about it, because we were never very much, you push on this joint 4 times and you push on this one at 6 degrees over here. We went well away from that when everyone was very much in that kind of vibe. And again, just when your position in the clinic, we were very much kind of looked after. And we had a stage when people would start, they would actually, the day they would start, we would give them some cash, tell them to go off, go and buy something nice, and then come back, we'd take them out for lunch. Then they'd have a mentor who would then basically then hang around with them for the next 10 days, take them to different clinics, doing different things, take them for coffees, take them to places we deliberately knew were nice places to go and have a good experience. So we really bedded people into it. So they would go, this is okay, it is the real McCoy. Because it's funny, and if you ask people who have been through Six, I used to interview everybody who would come along and not deliberately give them a hard time, but just see where they would flex. So if you would say, well, actually, I think it's a shoulder, I'll say, well, why don't you think it's a neck? And if you say, well, I think it's a muscle, I'll say, well, why not a joint? And just see how you would bend in that. And that gave me lots of confidence or insight as to how I think you probably need to be looked after, or how you need to be spoken to or respected or whatever. But at least you knew it was coming from the right bit. And when you got the job, oh my God, I've kind of passed it. So I've created something. You've passed it. You're now in it. Now let's look after you and develop you. Because it's all about developing someone and getting them better and taking them to where they wanted to become rather than we thought they should be going. But it takes time, and there's a cost associated to that. And that's the real investment. And that's why you try and get people not to last for 2 years, but for 2.5 years or for 3 years. Because physios are notoriously, they last for a couple of years. You train them up, they bugger off and go somewhere else again. So how do you keep them there? And if you can't create those jobs, you've got to make them having a wonderful time. So then they become your best, foghorn when they kind of leave. I'm going to, where should I go see the guys over here? So I think all that time investment when they come from the NHS and showing that it's a very different ethos, very different attitude, but it's having someone, their mentor with them all the time, say it's okay, or why not try doing this? Because the hard sell doesn't work. This is how you're going to hard sell it. It doesn't. They've got to believe it, they've got to feel it, they've got to smell it, they've got to understand it, and when they get it, it works. But there are some people, like I was saying, who are probably more mature, get it much quicker. There's some people, and they just don't. They are wonderful physios, they are wonderful people, they just can't get over this hump of doing stuff. Therefore, do you have to look at setting a different clinic, different area, different job, or maybe that's kind of it?
And ultimately, I like that. I like what you're doing in the interview of making it difficult, because the patient's going to be. They're going to pick the shit out of your ideas. Not all of them. Some of them are almost just if you're doing something wrong, they don't tell you, but there's certainly be plenty out there that if you don't get it right, they either won't come back or they'll be really challenging and direct.
And that's the problem, is that these are patients or physio just say, oh no, he was good, he didn't need to come back. No, he did. In his mind, he's prepared to come and spend some time and money with you. And remember, it's kind of weird to go and see a physio. You turn up with something you don't want to have, in a place you don't want to be, to do exercises you really don't want to do, to have to come back to a place don't go again. So all these negative things.
But you're doing it because of pain you don't want. And that's the key, right?
And that's it. And suddenly when you go, oh my God, they are coming back because they're in pain. Let me help them with that. All these things slot into place. So I think there's lots of different ways you can play the game. But I think you've got to show everyone all the different rules of it, rather than this is just Monopoly. But you can't play Monopoly in a rugby pitch. You've got to change. You've got to make sure you've got that guile and that ability.
Yeah. I remind people quite often that there are plenty of people out there that are suffering. They're just not suffering enough in order to come in and see you. And some people can handle a lot of suffering and some people don't tolerate much at all. And you'll all be able to recognise the people in your caseload where you're like, God, it doesn't take much for you to come and see me.
Yeah.
And you've got others where they've been suffering for many years and they still haven't bothered.
But you must have it, though. You must have patients who have been seeing for years and years and years. And actually, you know that the talking is the therapy. They want to come and have a chat. You want to jiggle them around. And actually, it's rather kind of wonderful that they say, oh, you're over-treating. And actually, I think under-treating is criminal. And I don't think over-treating, this is part of someone's feeling good about themselves.
Give them choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you feel like you want to come back and see me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll come back and see you in a month.
But it also becomes quite rude, doesn't it? Go, listen, you're spending a fortune. You don't come and see me. Oh, man, I feel so much better, Matt. So you go, okay, it's fine.
Do you want to see one of my colleagues? No, I'm going to come and see you for personal training. I'm not a personal trainer. Yeah, but I'm really enjoying our time together, so I'm just going to keep training with you.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. And it's wonderful. And we should embrace that. And that's what I'm saying. And that's the power and positivity of what we do. And that's great. And I think, you know, if you look to say someone who's got another career, say you're a banker, or imagine being told that you're going to see a lawyer, I just like hanging out with you. It's cost me a fortune, but I love it. It's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Yeah. So we are special. We are really privileged to see that side of people.
Yeah. What have we not spoken about today that's important? Something that the listeners should know.
Well, I think we've touched on belief. I think we've touched on it's got to be you. It's got to be belief. It's got to be your own passion. I it's funny when we get to January, start of the new year and stuff. Do people write these resolutions? And actually, this is my plan for the year. I personally don't. I know lots of people kind of do. I think you need to have some direction of where you want to be. How you get there, I don't think it kind of matters. I think it's about finding good people around you. And I think good people are people who can tell you when it's bad as well as when it's good. I think I would be very wary about people who just nod and say, yeah, great, fantastic. You need that pushback. You need that resistance. You need that rub from other people. And I don't necessarily think you should be copying other people, but you should be trying to see where the gaps are. So when the wall goes away, what can I see that people aren't doing and fill that piece? But it is essentially, it's just about being a nice person. Go to bed and go, I've done as good as I can, rather than I'm dicking someone over and I'm trying to pull the wool over someone's eyes. That just doesn't work, because we are all intrinsically kind of nice people. And that niceness is very heartwarming. And as I get older, I really kind of appreciate that. And it's strange because, a lot of my mates are really kind of high up in what I'm called proper businesses. They are bankers and lawyers and architects and all those proper jobs. But I've loved hanging out with guys in their 30s and 40s and seeing them grow and develop. And I think it keeps me kind of younger. So we often joked that, just don't be a dick. And it is that simple. Just don't be a dick. Just get on with people. Just smile, be happy, be thankful, and just enjoy what you've got. Because we've all got to work. It's just making it work for you.
Very nice. I think that's a good point to finish the episode off. Just as we close out the episode, I ask every guest, our original tagline and my personal why is better never ends. So I always ask the guests, what does better never ends mean to you?
I think you just keep developing, keep changing, keep challenging, because I think the more you learn, the better you become. Why stop now?
Simple. How does someone find out about you, Matt? Where are you active? Where can you be found? We mentioned it a bit earlier.
I'm out on the web somewhere. Yeah. Just matttodman.com.
Okay, very good. Thanks so much for your time. It's been a
pleasure. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Better, provider of health and wellness services in central London. We really believe that we can help people feel better and live better. You can book in for face-to-face services at any of our 3 London clinics. We have one in Marylebone, one in Soho, and one in the city. You can also follow us on Instagram at Better Never Ends, or head over to our website for more information about the clinics or the podcast at www.betterneverends.com.